This is Access 2016, Module 2, Part 3. In this segment, we're going to be looking at importing data from an Excel workbook. Oftentimes, the data that we need to bring into our database might be stored in another product, such as Excel. Could be stored in a text file. We'll look at that later. We've already copied data from another database. But if it's stored digitally in another format, oftentimes it's easier to use an import function and bring that data in rather than retyping it. For example, for my class reunion, our data originally was stored in an Excel workbook containing all the address and name information regarding all of my classmates. This was over 400 individuals, and so we did not want to type it all into an Access database when we put it into Access. Instead, we were able to use this import function and had all 400 people's information brought into the system in a very quick and easy fashion, as you're going to see in a moment. So let's get started. You need to have a couple of things already done. Your Riverview database must exist. That's the database we're working with. You should have built your visit table and copied and pasted data into that. And you should have created your billing table with the field information. You can see here that we want to add a couple of records first, and then we're going to import the rest in. I think one of the reasons why they have us go through this process of adding a couple of records first is to ensure that your fields are in the same order that they're going to be in the source that you're importing it in from. I did not type records in before I imported when I created my reunion one, so it is not required from an Access point of view, but it definitely is required that the fields are in the proper order. Otherwise, you will be importing fields information into the wrong fields. So we're going to go ahead and type in a couple of records to ensure that we have ours in the correct order. So we're going to start with invoice number 42098. The visit ID is 1002. The date of our visit is 11/9/16. We have an invoice amount of $50. Notice, because we said it was currency and we said it always had 2 decimals, we don't have to type the decimal places since they're both 0. It'll just default that information in. The invoice item is going to read lab work, and this is paid, so we are going to add the check mark. We're going to add 3 more records. So these are in figure 221 on page AC 78. So we're going to have 42125, 1012 on 11/21 for $50. It is off /site space visit, and it is not paid. Then we have 42271 1077, 12, 15, 16, and it is $45. And this is flea and tick medications, and it is paid. And then finally 42518 1181 on January 26 of 17, and $35, and it is heartworm medications, and it is not paid. So if you find yourself having to move around, you can't flow across the row with the way the data is presented to you, you probably have your fields in the wrong order, and you need to correct that before you try to do the import. So I'm going to go ahead and close the table. And remember, the data was saved as long as the pencil disappeared. So the next thing I'm going to look at is bringing in the rest of our data, and it's stored in an Excel workbook. So we're going to go over to this external data tab, and there's two sides to this. There's an import and an export. With an import, I'm finding data that's in another source and I'm bringing it in to my database. An export allows me to take data out of my database and put it into another format. We will not be using any exports in this class. We will only be doing importing. So if I tell you that I am importing from an Excel workbook, you need to go on the import side and locate the Excel button. You're always going to choose on the import side the button based on the type of file you are importing from. First thing is we have to locate our file. Now with this particular file, this is one of the files that you would have downloaded from the Q drive. So if you go to Browse, you should find within your files I believe, whoops, this is in the wrong spot, sorry about that. You should find one that says Invoices. Now this could be in the Access 1 folder or the Access 2 folder, and within that it's going to be under Modules. You're going to open up Invoices, and then you need to choose the second button that says Append a copy of the records to the table. It defaulted in Billing, but that's only because it looks at the tables and it pulls in the first one it sees. Since they're alphabetical, if the visit one had started with an A, it would have put that one in there. So the first thing you have to do after you tell it to append is you need to make sure you have the right table. We want it to append to billing. Then we're going to say OK. Now on this screen, it comes up and it shows us what information is in our Excel workbook. You should see the same fields in the same order that they are going to be in your table. And these are, so we're going to say next. We're going to leave it called billing. So we're going to click on finish. The only time you would need to save import steps is if you had to do this import over and over again. So let's say I had an accounting system that was capturing information, and every night I needed to import information from that system into my database. I could save the import steps so that I didn't have to make all the selections every time. We will not be saving import steps in class, and I don't believe you will have to on any of your SAM assignments. So we're just going to hit close. Now if we open up our billing table, you should see a lot of additional records available to us. One thing that I would probably do is resize this invoice item to auto fit, because as you could see, some of it was cutting off and you couldn't read all of those descriptions. But you can see you have a lot of records. We started out entering 4 and now we have 204. So I'm going to save the change to the structure, which is the column width. The save has nothing to do with the data that I imported. The data that you import is saved right when you do the import. So I'm done working with that table, so I'm going to go ahead and close it. And that concludes this section of our series.